the Diamond Sutra, Chapter 2, Subhuti's Request. At that time, the elder Subhuti arose from his seat in the assembly, uncovered his right shoulder, placed his right knee on the ground, but his palms together with respect, and said to the Buddha, after Shakyamuni Buddha had put away his robe and bowl, washed his face, arranged his seat, and sat down, an elder named Subhuti stood up in the assembly. There are three kinds of elders: the elder in years, the Dharma nature elder, and the elder in blessings and virtue. The elder in years must be old and have held the precepts for a long time, as had Mahakassapa, the oldest and longest precepted of those in Shakyamuni Buddha's Dharma assembly. There are three grades of elders in years: low rank, those who have held precepts for at least 10 years; middle rank, those who have held precepts for more than 20 years; and high rank, those who have held precepts for more than 30 years. The Dharma nature elder, number 2, the Dharma nature elder may be young, but he must possess great wisdom and be able to lecture sutras and speak Dharma with sufficient power to teach and transform living beings. His stature comes from his deep understanding of Dharma, his penetration of wonderful principle, and his unobstructed eloquence. For example, the Buddha's disciple Sariputra mastered the entire Buddha Dharma in just 7 days and became an elder at the age of 8. At that time, he mounted the high seat and spoke Dharma, totally confounding the best debaters from the 5 parts of India. All they could do was prostrate themselves before the 8-year-old child and confess themselves defeated. Of all Shakyamuni Buddha's disciples, Sariputra was foremost in wisdom and had unobstructed eloquence. There are 4 kinds of unobstructed eloquence: of phrasing, principle, Dharma, and delight in speech. A. Unobstructed eloquence of phrasing enables one to answer any question, however difficult, without perplexity. B. Unobstructed eloquence of principle is a necessary complement to that of phrasing, because along with having limitless powers of debate, one must always speak in accordance with principle. Unobstructed eloquence of Dharma means no matter what is said, one can counter with a higher principle. There is a saying, everything is the way, left and right meet the source. D. Unobstructed eloquence of delight in speaking enables one to obtain the delight in speech samadhi. Then, even if the audience is unwilling to listen, one's words flow like water, and no one can resist the current. The elder, number 3, the elder in blessings and virtue must have the reward from having planted blessings and acted with virtuous conduct. Elder is a term of respect, and definitely not a title one assigns oneself saying, I am an elder. Everyone should call me elder. Subhuti, the elder in the Vajra Prajna Dharma assembly, was an elder in years, a Dharma nature elder, and an elder in blessings and virtue. Subhuti has 3 meanings: empty born, well manifest, and good luck. In Subhuti's household, there were 108 storehouses filled with the 7 precious gems: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, mother of pearl, red pearls, and carnelian. When Subhuti was born, it was found that the storehouses were entirely empty. One after another, the vaulted doors were opened to reveal absolutely nothing within. "Who has stolen my jewels?" cried Subhuti's distraught father. "We had such wealth and are now penniless. What is the meaning of this, son?" He went to a diviner who calculated that the disappearance of the jewels and the birth of the child had been simultaneous. And so, his father called the infant empty born. Analyzing the child's birth chart, the diviner declared it very lucky, whereupon the child was further named Good Luck. 7 days after Subhuti's birth, all of the family wealth reappeared in the 108 storerooms. That moved the father to rename his son Well Manifest. Subhuti grew up while Shakyamuni Buddha was in the world, teaching and transforming living beings, and he left home under the Buddha. Subhuti arose from his seat in the assembly. From among the thousands of millions of billions of men and gods in the assembly, Subhuti got up from his seat. He saw Shakyamuni Buddha sitting there in a state which can only be described as thus, unmoving, completely and eternally bright. And he knew the Buddha was presenting the Dharma of prajna wisdom. For in his daily routine, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down, Shakyamuni Buddha always taught real mark prajna, contemplative prajna, and literary prajna. The wonderful door of prajna can only be entered by means of wisdom. Subhuti's wisdom, blessings, and virtue were complete. And so he understood that the Buddha was teaching the Dharma door of real mark prajna. For that reason, he arose from his seat in the assembly and uncovered his right shoulder. According to Indian custom, uncovering the right shoulder was a gesture of utmost respect, and Chinese monks, honoring the custom, left the right shoulder bare in their adaptation of the Indian robe. The Chinese modified the robe slightly in other respects. However, using shades of dark brown for the 5 and 7 piece robes rather than the saffron color worn by the Sangha of India, Thailand, Burma, and Ceylon. Also, since the climate of China is colder than that of India, monks needed additional clothing under their robes for added warmth. But with the robe not directly against their skin, they were not aware if it came loose. Patriarch Bodhidharma therefore designed a clasp on the left shoulder to secure the robe, and the clasp became a standard part of Chinese robe design. Subhuti uncovered his right shoulder, placed his right knee on the ground, put his palms together with respect, and said to the Buddha, "The ritual performed in requesting Dharma symbolizes the purity of the 3 karmas. Number 1, uncovering the right shoulder and placing the right knee on the ground represents the purity of body karma. Placing the palms together respectfully represents mind karma, pure mind karma. Verbalizing the request indicates the karma of the mouth is pure. How rare, world-honored one, is the Tathagata who remembers and protects all bodhisattvas and causes them to be well endowed. The rare occurrence Subhuti refers to is the appearance of a Buddha, a world-honored one. Shakyamuni Buddha had arranged his seat and sat down without saying a word. Was Subhuti making something out of nothing? Making waves where there was no wind? Setting up wrong where there had not even been a right? Placing a head on top of a head? Adding a mark to a mark? Was he just looking for trouble? If the Buddha had spoken a principle or made a sign, it might have made sense to respond, "How rare, world-honored one." But all Shakyamuni Buddha had done was arranged his seat and sat down. This passage merits very special attention, for the main point of the Vajra Sutra is right here. By the time Shakyamuni Buddha had arranged his seat and sat down, he had already finished teaching Dharma. That is why Subhuti uttered his words of praise. For Shakyamuni Buddha had taught the prajna of real mark, which is apart from the mark of the spoken word, apart from the mark of the written word, apart from the mark of the conditioned heart, apart from each and every mark. Only sages who had certified to the fruit understood. Common people were not up to it. Realizing that, Subhuti hoped Shakyamuni Buddha would speak a provisional teaching, an expedient dharma of literary prajna for the sake of living beings. That is why he prefaced his request for Dharma by saying, "How rare is the world-honored one. Truly rare is the Tathagata. Rarely is there a world-honored one. The real mark prajna is a protection and an endowment for all bodhisattvas. The Dharma is extremely wonderful. World-honored one, if a good man or good woman resolves his heart on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, how should he dwell? How should he subdue his heart?" Since Subhuti was requesting Dharma on behalf of living beings, he repeated his address to the world-honored one, Shakyamuni Buddha. "World-honored one," he said, "you have already taught real mark prajna, but most living beings have not understood or clearly recognized it. Please, world-honored one, teach it again for living beings in the future Dharma-ending age. If men and women of good conduct resolve their hearts on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi." Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is a Sanskrit word which means unsurpassed, proper, and equal right enlightenment. The term is not translated because it is an honorific designation for the ultimate fruit, that of Buddhahood. Anuttara means unsurpassed. Samyak is translated as proper or equal, and Sambodhi means right enlightenment. Right enlightenment is testified to by those of the two vehicles, and it is what differentiates them from common unenlightened people. The proper and equal enlightenment of the bodhisattvas differs from the right enlightenment of the two vehicles in that those who have it have testified to an enlightenment equal to the Buddha's. It is, however, still not the unsurpassed enlightenment. Once they have testified to proper and equal enlightenment, bodhisattvas are called surpassed lords. The Buddha is known as the unsurpassed Lord because there is nothing above him. The Dharma masters of great virtue who translated sutras in the past retained the original Sanskrit name of the Buddha's position, and Dharma masters who followed them honored the decision in their own translations. Subhuti asked the Buddha, if someone resolves his heart on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, how should he dwell? Which means, how can he eternally dwell in his true heart? How should he subdue his heart? How can he tame all false, vain thoughts? How can he subdue his greed? How can he tame his enmity? How can he conquer his stupidity? That is what is meant by subduing his heart. The evil heart must be conquered, just as if one were fighting to win a war. How does one conquer greed, anger, and stupidity? One counters them with morality, concentration, and wisdom. Greed, anger, and stupidity are morality, concentration, and wisdom, and vice versa. It is a matter of how one uses them. For example, one can use money to buy marijuana and get high, or he can use the money to help someone else. Relieving someone else's suffering is a far better use of money than selfishly smoking marijuana. It's the same money, only the use differs. So it is with greed, anger, and stupidity, morality, concentration, and wisdom. When one understands how to use them, they are morality, concentration, and wisdom. When one is so deluded that one cannot make them function, they are greed, anger, and stupidity. Ice does not differ from water, and water does not differ from ice. Just as water is ice, and ice is water, so too afflictions are bodhi, and bodhi is afflictions. Bodhi and afflictions are not two. If one cannot use it, bodhi changes to afflictions. If one can, afflictions become bodhi. However, what is spoken is dharma. What is practiced is the way. Even if you speak extremely well, with no real practice, there is no real way. One must actually go and do it. One must honestly, truly rely on the Buddha Dharma and cultivate, relentlessly cultivating morality, concentration, and wisdom, and putting to rest greed, anger, and stupidity are the means to subdue the heart. When one subdues the false heart, the true heart eternally dwells as a matter of course. The eternally dwelling true heart, clear nature, bright substance, results from putting to rest the false heart, which allows the true heart to manifest. The Buddha said, good indeed, Subhuti, it is as you say. The Tathagata remembers and protects all bodhisattvas and causes them to be well endowed. Now listen attentively, I shall tell you. A good man or good woman who resolves his heart on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should thus subdue his heart. Yes, certainly, world-honored one, I want to hear. I am delighted to listen. Sakyamuni Buddha, delighted that Subhuti came to request Dharma for the sake of living beings, praised him, saying, good indeed. Ah, you Subhuti, you are truly good. I really like you. You are my good disciple. It is as you have said, I, the Tathagata, remember and protect all bodhisattvas and cause them to be well endowed by teaching the Dharma door of prajna. You should pay particular attention. Listen well to what I teach you now. Do not let it be like wind in your ears. If I speak the wonderful Dharma door of prajna for you, and you let it go in one ear and out the other, that is just a waste of the Tathagata's heart and blood. Listen well. A good man or a good woman who resolves his heart on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should thus dwell in his true heart. Thus subdue his false heart. The essential place in the Vajra Prajna Paramita Sutra lies in the word thus. At that point, Sakyamuni Buddha gave an indication which is not apparent in the literature. What was it like? It was thus at that point. The road of words and language is cut off. The place of the heart's working is extinguished. The presence of words in the mouth ends. The conditioned deliberation of the mind vanishes. Thus is like this. The wordless teaching instructs one to investigate dhyana and sit in meditation. One should dwell thus. Dwell at the place that is thus. One's true heart dwells at that place. One should subdue one's thoughts thus. One can investigate dhyana and, using the skill of still consideration, naturally subdue one's false heart. Therefore, thus represents no obvious sign which emerges, but rather indicates a manner. What manner is that? It is the lack of manner inherent in markless prajna, and it constitutes real mark prajna. Subhuti understood. Not only did he understand, he thought that future living beings also could understand, so he replied, yes. His affirmative declaration was the same as that once used by Confucius' disciple Xing. The master said, Shin, my way is threaded through by one. Xing replied, yes. The master left and the disciples questioned, what did the master say? Xing said, the way of the sage is that of loyalty and reciprocity. Confucius said, there is one true principle which runs through my way. That is my way. To which his disciple exclaimed, yes. When asked what the master meant, Xing merely replied, the sage's way is one of loyalty and reciprocity. When Sakyamuni Buddha instructed that living beings should dwell thus, should thus subdue their hearts. Subhuti also exclaimed yes, and added, certainly, or emphasis. Then he reaffirmed his desire to hear Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching. The end of chapter 2.